This came first, Dimetrodon, not a dinosaur. Dimetrodon is a synapsid, the branch that eventually produced mammals, which means this sail-backed predator is more closely related to you than it is to Tyrannosaurus rex. Dimetrodon walked across North America more than 40 million years before the first dinosaur existed. And Dimetrodon was not alone out there. An entire world filled Permian America, a floodplain with its own apex predators, its own giant amphibians, its own rules, and almost nobody can name a single animal from the Permian. This video walks backwards through Permian America and into the Carboniferous coal forests behind it. The Permian gets stranger the further back we go, and the Permian ends in the Great Dying, the worst extinction event in the history of this planet. Start with Dimetrodon itself. Dimetrodon grew to around 3.5 meters, with some species pushing 4.5, larger than a saltwater crocodile. Long, heavy body, low to the ground, and 4 limbs sprawling out sideways instead of tucked underneath, so Dimetrodon moved in a wide side-to-side gait with its belly close to the dirt. Then there is the sail. The spines holding the sail up are extensions of the vertebrae, some over 1 meter long, with skin stretched between them and blood vessels running through that skin. The classic explanation for the Dimetrodon sail is a radiator. Turn broadside to the morning sun, warm up fast, start hunting before anything else can move. That was the textbook answer for decades. Today, the radiator idea is contested because the sail scales badly for heat control at Dimetrodon's body size, and the competing explanation is display, the way antlers on a deer are display. Paleontologists have not settled the Dimetrodon sail. The Dimetrodon skeleton also tells you how this predator hunted, and the answer is not speed. Those sprawling limbs make Dimetrodon a slow, heavy walker, closer to a monitor lizard than to any running animal. The Dimetrodon skull is deep and narrow with a strong bite, and the front canines are serrated along the edge, serrations built for cutting through flesh, not for crushing bone. So the Dimetrodon hunting strategy was almost certainly ambush. Hold still near a Permian riverbank. Wait for an Archaeops or a smaller amphibian to come to the water and close a short distance fast. Bite marks matching Dimetrodon teeth turn up on amphibian bone in the Texas red beds, which is about as direct as the fossil record gets. But the sail is not the most important feature of Dimetrodon. The teeth are? A crocodile's teeth are the same tool repeated down the jaw, cone after cone after cone. Dimetrodon teeth are not. Dimetrodon has large blade-like canines at the front of the skull and different, smaller teeth behind them, doing a different job. That is where the name Dimetrodon comes from. It means roughly 2 measures of teeth. Differentiated teeth like that are a mammal characteristic. Human teeth work that way. Dog teeth work that way. Crocodile teeth do not. So the apex predator of Permian North America was already building the same mouth you are using right now. The hard diagnostic is in the Dimetrodon skull. Look at the side of the skull behind the eye socket. Reptile skulls and dinosaur skulls have 2 openings there. Mammal skulls have one. The Dimetrodon skull has one. That single opening in the Dimetrodon skull is the reason paleontologists place Dimetrodon on the mammal branch, and it is the same opening sitting behind your own eye socket, filled with the jaw muscle you are using to chew. Now the time scale, because the word prehistoric hides how enormous these gaps are. Tyrannosaurus rex lived about 66 million years before you. Dimetrodon lived about 200 million years before Tyrannosaurus rex. Dimetrodon is 3 times further from T-Rex than T-Rex is from a human being. When a toy company drops Dimetrodon into the dinosaur bin, that is not a small mistake about categories. That is a mistake about a span of time nobody can really picture. Now look at the Permian landscape Dimetrodon lived in. Drive to North Texas and southern Oklahoma today, and you are standing on the Permian redbeds, some of the most important Permian rock on Earth. Deep rust-colored mudstone, hundreds of meters thick, laid down by a hot lowland floodplain sitting near the equator. The Permian redbeds were not jungle. This was seasonal, half-dry country, cut by rivers that flooded, and then shrank back into stagnant pools, with hard-baked ground between them. The red color in the mudstone is iron oxidizing in open air. That color is the Permian floodplain telling you it was frequently aggressively dry. And these red beds are not behind a fence in a foreign country. The Permian red beds are road cuts, creek banks, and eroded ranch land across North Texas and southern Oklahoma. And they have been producing Permian fossils for well over a century. Texas ranchers know the layers. The red beds are one of the richest windows into the Permian anywhere on Earth, and they sit under cattle country in the middle of the United States. A second sail-backed animal lived on that same Texas floodplain, and almost everyone confuses it with Dimetrodon. Edaphosaurus was about the same length, with the same tall fan of spines down its back. And Edaphosaurus ate plants. Bulky barrel body, very small head, grinding teeth built for vegetation, no threat to anything. The way to tell Edaphosaurus from Dimetrodon is the spines. Edaphosaurus spines carry small bony crossbars sticking out sideways along their length, like rungs on a ladder, and Dimetrodon spines are smooth. So, on one Permian floodplain, at one moment in time, Dimetrodon and Edaphosaurus independently grew enormous sails, and one was a hunter and one was a grazer. Whatever the sails were for, evolution built them twice. Down in the Permian water, there was something heavier. Archaeops was around 2 meters long, built like a flattened crocodile, broad, low skull, wide, gaping mouth, short, sprawling legs, several hundred pounds of animal. And Archaeops was an amphibian. Not a modern amphibian, small and damp. Archaeops belonged to the group that still ran the wetlands. Archaeops laid eggs in water, hunted the shallows, and had a skull built to snap shut on fish. Archaeops is what a dominant amphibian looked like at the end of the age when amphibians were still winning. Then there is Diplocaulus, and nobody believes Diplocaulus on first sight. The Diplocaulus skull was shaped like a boomerang. Not a crest, not a bump. The Diplocaulus skull grew outward into 2 long, backward-pointing horns, one on each side, so the head was 3 or 4 times wider than it was long, and formed a hard, flattened wedge. Body about 1 meter, small legs, and that enormous rigid triangle of a skull on the front. The leading explanations for the Diplocaulus head are mechanical. Shaped like that, water flowing over the skull generates lift, so Diplocaulus could hold position or rise in a current with almost no effort. Or the shape is defensive, because a head that wide is extremely difficult for a predator to swallow. Both may be true. What is certain is that Diplocaulus filled the Texas ponds for millions of years. Now go back past the red beds, into the Carboniferous, and the air itself changes. The Carboniferous coal swamps were enormous wet forests of tree-sized club mosses and ferns, standing water everywhere, and oxygen levels well above what you are breathing today. Insects and their relatives have no lungs. They take in air passively through the body wall, and that caps how large an arthropod can grow. Raise the oxygen, and the cap rises. So the Carboniferous coal forest held arthropods at sizes that are physically impossible today. Arthropleura, a millipede the length of a car. Giant dragonfly relatives with wingspans as wide as your shoulders. scorpions longer than a human forearm hunting the leaf litter at night. Those carboniferous forests are the reason coal exists in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Alabama. Then oxygen levels fell, the size cap fell with them, and the giant carboniferous arthropods disappeared. By the time Dimetrodon was hunting the Texas redbeds, the giant insects were already gone. So that is the world. Dimetrodon and Edaphosaurus on a red Texas floodplain, Ariops in the pools, Diplocaulus in the shallows, and behind all of it the memory of carboniferous coal forests full of oversized arthropods. Now here is what killed the Permian. 252 million years ago, the Earth did something it has never done before or since, and paleontologists call it the Great Dying, the Permian Triassic extinction. In the ocean, somewhere between 80 and 96% of all species died. On land, roughly 7 in 10 vertebrate groups vanished. The Great Dying is not comparable to the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. That asteroid left a functioning planet behind. The Great Dying nearly ended complex life on Earth entirely, and there was no asteroid in the Permian extinction. The cause was volcanic, in what is now Siberia, the Siberian Traps. Not a volcano in the shape of a mountain, but enormous fissures in the crust that opened and poured basalt lava across an area the size of a continent, on and off, for roughly 1 million years. The Siberian lava itself was not the problem. What the Siberian Traps burned through was coal beds, carbonate rock, and organic sediment, releasing carbon dioxide, methane, and sulfur into the atmosphere at a scale nothing alive was prepared for. Global temperature rose. The oceans warmed, and warm seawater holds less oxygen, so the ocean began to suffocate from the sea floor upward. Carbon dioxide dissolving into seawater turned the ocean more acidic, which attacks any animal building a shell. Permian reef systems collapsed and did not return for millions of years, and the Permian extinction was not fast. Estimates put the main pulse of the Great Dying somewhere in the range of tens of thousands of years. On the ground, that means no single animal in the Permian ever experienced a catastrophe. Each generation simply inherited a world slightly worse than the last one. The floodplain a little hotter, the ponds a little emptier, the ocean a little more dead, for longer than the human species has existed. There was no single day the Permian ended. There was a slow decline lasting tens of thousands of years, and at the end of it, almost nothing was left alive. The Texas redbeds record the Permian extinction directly. Walk the rock layer by layer, and the fossil diversity falls away as you climb. The amphibians thin out. Dimetrodon and Edaphosaurus are already absent, and above a certain layer the redbeds contain almost nothing. Recovery from the Great Dying took 5 to 10 million years, which is longer than the entire existence of the human genus. And here is what that means for dinosaurs, because it reframes the whole story. Dinosaurs did not defeat Dimetrodon, Edaphosaurus, or Ariops. Dinosaurs never met them. The first dinosaurs appear around 230 million years ago, more than 20 million years after the Great Dying ended, in a Triassic world that had already been emptied and was slowly refilling. Dinosaurs did not outcompete the Permian sailbacks and the giant amphibians for the top of the food chain. Dinosaurs walked into empty spots because the Permian tenants were already dead. And the Synapsids, the branch Dimetrodon belonged to, our branch, did not die out in the Permian. The Synapsids got small. Through the entire age of dinosaurs, for 160 million years, the mammal lineage lived in the undergrowth at roughly the size of a shrew, waiting. Then an asteroid hit the Gulf of Mexico. The dinosaurs at the top of the world died the same way the Permian sailbacks had died, and the small mammals came back out. So Dimetrodon is not a dinosaur, that got left out of the story. Dimetrodon is the other half of the story. Before a single dinosaur existed anywhere on Earth, North America was already ruled by a Synapsid on the mammal branch of the family tree with mammal-style teeth standing in the red dirt of what is now Texas. Dimetrodon ruled here first, and Dimetrodon was here far longer than humans have been. Which of these animals did you think was a dinosaur? Be honest in the comments. Almost everybody says Dimetrodon.